Greetings and welcome to Hexed and Countered. I'm Joe. In this video, we will be taking a first look at the game World War I Deluxe Edition. This is from Decision Games, and it is a game that has its roots all the way back in 1975 in Strategy and Tactics magazine number 51, and was originally designed by James Dunnigan, but this one has been updated and deluxeified, if you will, and is designed by Joseph Miranda. This was part of our three-way poll. I couldn't think of the word. Three-way poll, yes, for a World War I strategic level game. And it narrowly lost by, I think it was only one vote, to The Lamps Are Going Out. And so I figured, since I might have enough time here this month to actually do something with this game, I'm going to do a first look, and then I will try to get a gameplay or two in before the month is over, so that that would only leave Paths of Glory of the three that I offered up. And Paths of Glory did finish third, but again, it was very close. It was maybe 2 votes behind World War I Deluxe. So that's the preliminaries. We'll take a quick look at the back, just like I typically do with my first look videos. So this is an update of Joseph Miranda's game published in Strategy and Tactics number 294, which was itself a remake of the original game. So it does include a mounted game board and updated graphics, optional rules, and setup maps that were not published in the original magazine version. So you have a scenario that covers the entire war from 1914 to 18 in 10 turns, while short scenarios handle the opening phase of the war of 2 turns and the final great battles 4 turns. There is a possibility of including or doing a free setup in 1914. And you can also extend the war into 1919. Victory comes from wearing down an opponent, either by capturing essential locations or by exhausting mobilization points. In the game as in the war, battle is sometimes necessary for its own sake. So this is designed for 2 players or 4. It is solo friendly. We do have 228 die cut counters, a 34 by 22 inch mounted game board, and a color rules booklet. It's army level. Hex scale is 36 miles, playing time 2 to 12 hours, complexity is medium to high, solitaire friendliness is also medium. Here's a look at the map and some of the counters. Now let's see them inside the box. Okay, there's that. 1 green D6 and some baggies. And then we have the cover for the game. Sorry about that. Let me zoom out a little bit. So I like the cover. It's got this old newspapery look. Of course, it came out in 2018, which is obviously the 100th anniversary of the end of the First World War. This really looks like what it said on the back of the box. We will take a quick spin through that here in a moment. I will show you the counter sheets or counter sheet. It looks like there's just the one here. So you can see the various countries, right? We've got Germany right up here. Being army level, that's probably how you can get away with a single sheet of counters. At least that's what it looks like, a single sheet of counters. Obviously, that's the map right there. So you have Germany and Austria-Hungary, and then the Ottomans. So you have your Central Powers right here with Bulgaria, of course, part of that. And then some various, the plan, we'll see this in the rules, but the plan counters are important. For a way to kind of extend a turn and take care of like secondary and even tertiary offensives or defensive, for defensive purposes as well. Unrestricted submarine warfare, of course. Then you've got naval, tactical air, strategic. National will markers, probably one for each nation, I'm guessing, and then various markers for various things here. And on this side, you have the allies, of course. The British, the French with a Greek counter as well, Russia, Italy, here's some more Greeks down here. We got Serbia, Romania, and the United States. And then, of course, some similar type markers and so on for the Allied countries. Double-sided. This is kind of thin, to be honest. Maybe it's similar to what they had in the magazine. I'm not sure. I did not have the magazine version. They seem a little thinner than what I am typically used to from Decision Games, but this game came out 8 years ago, so they may have changed their counter production in that time. And then, of course, we do have the map. I saved the map for last. I'd like to give you guys something to look forward to. Of course, we will have a chapter list that'll show you where everything is anyway. So we will go through the rules very quickly, then take a look at the map. And that's basically all there is to the game. It's relatively simple on the surface, but there is, I read the designer rules online, and there is some nice decision-making space in this game. Okay, so you can see we've got 28 sections in our table of contents here. You can see the deluxe edition credits, which does include the first SPI edition. Design was by James Dunnigan. Development, Kip Allen. And of course, this one was Joseph Miranda and Chris Perello on the development. Map by Joe Youst. Counter graphics, Larry Hoffman. All right, so here's our introduction. Two-player game of the Great War, 1914 to 1918. Hypothetical scenario extends the game into 19. One player controls the allies, the other central powers. Each may be joined during play by one or more neutral powers. Okay, components, rules. Each rule has a two-part number, right? Pretty standard. Charts, tables, and displays. There's a list of those here. Those are in the rule book. We don't have a separate player aid. So it kind of follows the magazine-ish version, I think, in general, in that the player aids are in here as opposed to being separate. Helps keep the cost down. This game is not, by today's standards, overly expensive at all. Okay, then you've got, yeah, like I said, all the charts are here. Your turn record track is on the map, as are event boxes, the mobilization point track. We'll see all this when we look at the map. Obviously, unit boxes to hold each side's units when available or eliminated. Resource boxes, a phase track to track the current phase of the game turn, and a terrain key. Okay, so you got the map. The map covers Europe and the Middle East, where most of the fighting took place, or the homelands where mobilization occurred. It's a hexagon map, of course. Fronts, 3 fronts on the map: Western, and Eastern, which includes the Balkans and the Middle East. The dividing line between the Western and Eastern fronts is delineated on the map. The dividing line between the Middle East and Eastern front is the border of that map. Okay. Units, army size and corps size, right? Pretty standard NATO symbology there. Counters, we'll take a quick look here, nice and tight. So you can see your unit type, nationality, attack and defense strength right there. Unit ID, this is the first army. And the unit size symbol, obviously, that's an army. And then the back, you can see the kind of trench marker here. So you have 2 phases for your units. One is the mobile side, mobile mode, it says right there, which is the front, and the back is the entrenched mode side. Entrenched obviously makes your defense stronger, but you cannot move. Mobile allows you to move, so you need to be in mobile mode to attack, which makes sense, right? They came out of their trenches to attack, and then of course you also had the mobile portion of the war early on and late, when things were kind of in flux, as opposed to the long slog in the middle where everybody was in trenches and it was just a war of attrition, which this game has rules to model as well. So you got counter types here. There are reserves, mountain troops, expeditionary forces, tanks, shock, cavalry, then some markers here, campaign markers, and optional markers down here. Unit abbreviations, we won't worry about that right now. Your nationalities, yeah, just more counter stuff. Game scale, hex is 36 miles as we saw. That's the Europe map. And 48 on the Middle Eastern map, 48 miles. Sequence of play. So you have turns. Initiative is gained at the beginning of each turn by the player whose major powers have the larger combined total of mobilization points. Right? Your mobilization points are kind of your currency, where you want to have some, but you need to spend them to do things. So that's part of the strategy space in this game, is how do you use those to best effect and make sure that you keep enough so that your country doesn't collapse, basically. Because your manpower will drop as time goes on, and men are lost, as you would expect, right? This was a very attrition-based war. So initiative is based on mobilization points. Impulses, you have player impulses up to 3 per turn. That's what I was talking about with the plan markers. You use those to, you spend, it says right here, player must expend a plan marker to activate each front. It's that you get a free activation in the first impulse. If you want to activate again in the second and or third, you have to spend a plan marker. Okay, activation procedure. I'm not going to go too in depth here, but you do have supply, right? Units can trace lines of communication from one front to another regardless of activation. Movement, you cannot cross to another front unless the phasing player has activated both fronts. Right, so that's an important thing to remember. You cannot attack or advance across a front boundary unless both fronts are activated. You can retreat across the boundary, however. Winner is determined by victory points gained by each player. Victory point schedule. So the allies score 7 for each turn the blockade's in effect, and the Central Powers score 5 for each turn the blockade is not in effect. Enemy violation of neutrality. It costs you victory points to do so. You've got Albania's 2, Bulgaria 5, Italy 15, Netherlands 10, Persia 1, Belgium 10, Greece 5, Luxembourg 1, the Ottoman Empire 15, and Romania 5. Surrender of enemy powers. To knock someone out in the first year is 100. That's a lot. And scored at the end of the game, you get 5 for each occupied enemy mobilization hex, 5 for each objective hex, 5 for each minor power capital, 5 for each collapsed minor power, and then 10 for each occupied enemy resource hex, each occupied enemy major power capital, so like Berlin or Paris, and then 10 for each collapsed enemy major power. Okay, level of victory. If you win by 75 or more, that's an imperial victory. 50 to 74 continental, 25 to 49 exhaustive victory, and 0 to 24 is a draw. All right, there is a sudden death rule. Unit statuses. Combat units are printed with mobile on the front and entrenched on the back. In some but not all cases, the combat values on either side are different. Side facing up indicates which status a unit's in at that moment. How do you change statuses? We'll go through that when we play. Supply state, lines of communication, ultimate supply, sources, lines of communication restrictions. Pretty standard. Hex is occupied by an enemy unit or fortification. A hex subject to an enemy zone of control. Speaking of which, entrenched units have a ZOC. Mobile units do not. Out of supply effects, right? You got survival, movement, combat, fortifications, etc. Central powers in the Middle East. You can deploy any number of Ottoman units on the Middle East, but only expeditionary units from the other central powers. Zones of control. Pretty standard. Moving unit must stop after entering an enemy ZOC. Supply can't be traced out of, through, or into an enemy zone of control. You cannot retreat through an EZOC. If you're forced to do so, you are eliminated. A ZOC negates enemy control of a hex, but does not give control to the side exerting the ZOC, so it's like mutual control, contested. Unit placement. Newly constructed units may not be built in EZOCs. EZOCs are negated by the presence of friendly units and or fortifications in a hex for the purpose of tracing lines of communication, retreat, and hex control. Movement. You have a movement allowance on your mobile side. The number of movement points available to a unit varies with the season. 5 in summer, 4 in winter. How movement works. You've got terrain and so on. Railroad movement. There are railroads. Here's combat. So attacking is voluntary. You're never required to attack. In a given combat phase, the phasing players' units are the attackers and the non-phasing players' units are the defenders, right? Makes sense. Combat prerequisites and restrictions. You have to be adjacent, and you must be able to move into the hex if it were unoccupied. No unit may attack nor be attacked more than once per combat phase. Multi-unit and multi-hex. Attacker may combine more than one unit against a single defending unit if all are adjacent. I believe the stacking rule is 1 unit per hex, if I remember correctly. I kind of glanced at the PDF of the rules because, as you saw, I had not opened the box. And you have your resolution phase. Designate friendly units that will be attacking one enemy hex. Once an attack has been declared, it cannot be called off. Total the attack strengths of all units. Total the defense strengths of the defending unit and any fortification in the attacked hex. Make any adjustment for terrain and weather. Subtract total defense from total attack to get the combat differential. The attacker cannot reduce the differential voluntarily due to the inflexibility of World War I tactics as well as general fog of war. Find a column on the CRT corresponding to the differential. Roll one die, cross-index the result with the differential column to get the result. Modify the result for concentric attack, which is attack from two sides, like you would see here. If these two were attacking that one, for example, or these two were attacking this one, would not be eligible as, because this unit's here. So this one can't, you don't get the bonus because the two French units are adjacent to each other. I think you would get it here, though. Yes, you would receive the concentric attack because it's being attacked by the 3rd, 5th, and 7th armies, and all hexes adjacent to the defender are either occupied or adjacent to an attacking unit. All right, combat results. Retreat rules, etc. Advance into vacant hex. You got more examples here. Again, I won't go through all of this right now. I don't want this to be super long. Once I start digging into rules, I get carried away a little bit, so I apologize. I know this is getting long already. Mobilization. This is an important part. This is about your mobilization points, which is, as I mentioned, the currency for driving basically the whole thing. And so we will go into this in detail. But it basically represents a power's manpower and material capacity. MP are expended to satisfy combat losses, to build reinforcements, and for various other game functions. Record each power's currently available MP by placing its marker on the mobilization point track on the map. Adjust it as MPs are received and expended. A power's MP can never exceed the maximum box on the track, ignore any excess, and cannot drop below 0. Some countries, such as Albania, never receive MP and have no marker. MP retention. A power retains any current MP on the mobilization track, even if it loses all of its mobilization centers. Collapse or surrender. When a power collapses or surrenders, it loses all accumulated mobilization points and cannot collect any more. Units of other powers, friendly or enemy, which have not collapsed, may collect the MP for occupied resources and objective hexes, as noted in 10.2 through to 10.5, which is all of this stuff. Modifying receipts, expending it. So what do you spend it on? Absorb combat losses by units of the same power, build new units for the power, rebuild destroyed fortifications belonging to the power, purchase campaign markers. That's the plan thing. And construct ports, railroads, and depots. You can build new units, deploy new units. Here's fortifications. So rules for fortifications and how they impact combat. Campaign markers. Then you have some of your tables. They start here. You've got your CRT, and you can see differentials here from -1 up to +10. Strategic attack, terrain effects, right? So your TEC, your bread and butter, CRT, TEC, right there on the same page. Then here is a look at the map. So you can see the map here. We do have kind of like the central powers here in the middle. This is front lines for scenario 4 battle for Europe. And the red lines are the front lines. Then over here we have mobilization costs for your various units. You can see Stas armies, right? That would be the German stormtroopers. They cost 3, and they cannot be built until 1916 or later. The Germans can do unrestricted submarine warfare after 1915 or 1915 and later, and so on. I mean, there's various things here. You've got tanks for the Allies that cost 5 starting in 1917 and so on. Rules for the neutral powers and how they can be activated, including the United States. Naval transport rules. Transit areas, special units, right? So this is where you talk about reserve armies, assault units, assault armies, tank armies, Russia's Brusilov army, Italy's Arditi, the Ottoman Empire's Yildirim, the Alpine Corps, Expeditionary Corps, British Desert Mounted Corps, the Ottoman Army of Islam, Russian National Armies, and the BEF. Assault tactics, collapse and surrender rules. Then your optional rules, you can transfer MPs between allies on both sides. Russian Civil War begins on the first turn after Russia surrenders. You place the marker on the map space to indicate this. For the remainder of the game, during each strategic warfare phase, the initiative player rolls 1 die and applies the indicated results from the Russian Civil War table. High-density railroads. France, Luxembourg, Belgium, Netherlands, and Germany had dense rail networks. The areas indicated on the map with a gold border. Units and resource hexes of the owning power can trace a line of communication through any of those hexes as if they contained railroads. Advanced lines of communication, depots, infiltration, the Staatstruppen's specialty. So assault qualified units are the Staatstruppen, the tanks, the Alpine troops, and the DMC. No man's land, construction, insurgents, and then we get to our scenarios. First scenario is the Great War in its entirety. You get your list of where everybody goes, numbered armies, and the hex they start in. Then you have central powers start with initiative, so you skip the initiative, determination, and diplomatic activation phases on turn 1. Neutrals, Germany has violated Luxembourg's neutrality. German units may move and attack into Luxembourg. Germany may violate Belgian and or Netherlands neutrality. If any power violates any other neutral, the violating power loses 50% of its MP. Ooh, that's steep. And it says any other neutral. So the Germans can invade Belgium and or the Netherlands and not lose their MP. Got rules for Austria-Hungary, Belgium, British Empire, France, Germany, Russia, where they all go. Scenario 2 is home before the leaves fall. Same setup as 1, but it ends after turn 2. Scenario 3 is free deployment. Use the setup for scenario 1, except as modified by the following instructions. Belligerent unit setup. All belligerent units are set up anywhere within their own countries with the following exceptions. British Empire, the BEF must be set up on any port in France or in either the French or British Empire transit area. Historic setup. The below units must be set up using historical deployment from scenario 1. The French 9th, the Russian 9th, and the German 9th. Belligerent setup sequence. And then you got scenario 4, which is the battle for Europe. It starts in turn 7 and ends in turn 10, so 4 turns. With all various information about setting up there. And then you get the player's guide from designer Joseph Miranda. This is what I read. So gave me some insight there. And then you've got campaign marker instructions for using those campaign markers. Here's the Russian Civil War table. And on the back here, we have the sequence of play, diplomatic activation table, and the naval campaign table. All right, let's take a look at the map. Okay, so the orientation is north is this way. So here's the Middle Eastern map, and you've got your mobilization point track is right here. Then you have turn record track and your phase track here, and some boxes for the French, the British, the Americans, and Allied campaign markers, and so on over there. The Ottoman Empire, here's Egypt, right? And there's the Suez Canal, and Cairo is over here. So this is the Ottoman Middle Eastern area, which goes all the way over to Russia, down here. I can't quite show the whole thing right now on map. Here's Greece, right? This gray border here separates the areas. Here's your Russian Civil War in effect box right here. Down here you have your central power type thing, as well as the Ottomans and the Russians. And then if we slide it over, let me just rotate it here. Just do this so you can get a better look maybe. All right, so France, Belgium, the Netherlands, Germany. Of course, you got Russian Empire over here. You got the Austro-Hungarian Empire right here. And down at the bottom, we have Serbia, Romania, Greece, Bulgaria, etc. down in this area, right? The Balkans. Italy, of course, over here. The the neutral Swiss right there in the middle. So you can see there's not a ton of France on the map, but there is Paris, and we all know that if you get to, if you capture a major power's capital, that is a very big blow in terms of victory points. So basically we stretch from Paris on the west to Kiev and Minsk and Riga on the east, and also Odessa and Sevastopol. So that, my friends, is a look at the World War I Deluxe Edition game from Decision Games. And as I said, I'm going to try to get this to the table before the end of the month so that I can at least get 2 out of the 3 that were in the poll. Because the poll was so close, and if I thought there was a way I could do all 3, I would try, but I don't think that's going to happen. So thank you for watching. I hope you got something out of it. This was mostly a rules review. There weren't a lot of components to show. You did get a look at the counter sheet as well. But yeah, that's going to do it for this one. So thanks again for watching. I appreciate you taking the time. If you have any questions or comments, please put them in the comment section. I will do my best to get back to you as soon as possible. While you're here, if you'd consider liking, sharing, hyping, or perhaps subscribing to the channel, that would be really awesome. But if not, hopefully you'll come back and check out something else down the road. Quick shout out to my channel members. I appreciate the support from them. We have 2 tiers, Hexed and Countered. You can find out more by clicking the join button. And as I always say, that does not mean you're joining. It just means you're looking at the information about what it is. So, once again, thanks for watching. Until next time, I am Joe. This is the Hexed and Countered channel. And as always, happy gaming.